Hi guys, so last time we did the really underrated and underappreciated group Dreamcatcher, and today we're staying kind of on the same train with Astro. Let's go. As always guys, a couple of disclaimers before we start. If you guys fancy a little bit of extra content that I'm really going to try and implement sometime in the next few weeks properly, and consider following me on Patreon, the link will be in the description. It would mean an awful lot to me if you would support me on there. If not, that's okay, I don't mind that as well, but it would be great if you could. Also, I'm going to leave my Twitter in the description because I really want to get more active on that account and really kind of share the videos that way because it's the best way to really get things sorted and get things shared. Okay, so Astro are a really fun group to get to know. I already kind of knew them going in. They were a group I've known for a while and I've been a fan of for a while. I just like delving into their vocals a little bit more because they have some really hidden vocalists that are really good and they all do a lot of really good things with their voices and they blend their voices very well for a lot of different styles, a lot of different textures. And they're also really energetic and really fun people. So yeah, if you guys don't know Astro, I implore you to go listen to them. They're really fun, really unique and have a really nice, cool poppy sound with some really great vocals as well. Without further ado, let's delve into the vocal ranking of Astro. Okay, so while I put Gingin in last place, he's not really a bad singer, just doesn't sing seriously a lot of the time, but there's a little bit to delve in here there with his voice, so let's have a look at it.
눈물이 멈추지 않아. 너에게 따뜻한 존재가 되어 널
So as I say, I want to preface this kind of by saying most of the time and for most of the clips that I kind of saw, Gingin was mainly singing as a joke. And while he did sing seriously sometimes, he didn't use his voice in the most melodic way he possibly could have done. Having said that, there is enough to kind of gauge what he does with his voice. Okay, so firstly, he's pretty much the only baritone in Astro. Everyone else has a higher tenor vocal and a higher leaning voice, and he has a thicker, fuller, deeper voice. So because of that, automatically, he isn't going to be getting many of the singing parts really in Astro's music or in Astro's songs because his voice just doesn't really fit that style. Having said that, he has a really mad dynamic range. When I was looking at all the clips of him joking around, he can get his voice into really low areas, because it's actually like, duh, and really low. And then he'll start going like, yeah, and just start screaming. He'll just kind of like pull chest voice up as far as it'll go. And that's kind of what he did most of the time. He kind of stayed as full as he possibly could at all times. And sometimes it landed, sometimes it didn't. He didn't have like an issue with range or anything like that. His voice had a lot of avenues to it and could do a lot of things. He just didn't really try and place it particularly well. He didn't have any huge placement issues, like he didn't put it nasally or anything and he didn't kind of put it far back. He just kind of kept it really neutral, really full and just went for it. And sometimes it kind of landed and sounded pretty nice and mixed kind of inefficiently but did it a little bit. And then sometimes it just kind of went really throaty and really crackly straight away. As well as that, he also has like a head voice that you can get into and scream into. So basically, yeah, Gingin's voice has a lot it can do. He just doesn't really try and utilize it incredibly well. As I say, he kind of pulls chest a lot of the time, but pretty much exclusively, which leads to an incredibly inconsistent tone anywhere above your speaking voice. But the fact that he can get his voice into those places leads me to believe that if he tried to place it a bit better, he would have a lot of success in singing. He has a lot of good dynamics, which is something that you do need. His tuning isn't fantastic. He does like scales occasionally with other people, and the tuning does fall off here and there. Again, because if you're staying so full all the time without lightening it to kind of go higher, your voice won't tune super efficiently. But having said that, when he did sing more seriously and kept it in a lower, more spoken tone, he sounded nice. He sounded kind of full and connected. He lightened it a little bit, and the tuning was pretty pleasant and pretty decent. And had a nice smoky tone, obviously because he's a baritone with a lower sitting voice. So while he sings around his spoken pitch, which I did find a few times, it was nice. Not hugely varied, didn't have too much to it, but it went into nice areas. But then as he kind of brings it up, he doesn't really have placement down, so he kind of just pulls chest, and sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. So he can't really be anything other than like last place. But his voice has a lot of potential, a lot of room to grow, and a lot of dynamic range. He just kind of yells with it and kind of does what he wants with it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And that's kind of indicative of someone who doesn't want to be a melodic singer. It's just kind of a choice, and he just pulls loads of chest to impress people, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, he's not consistent or anything, but his voice has a lot of potential. Okay, so while Gingin mainly joked around and had some things to work with, Charlton Woo has a lot more to work with, and his voice has actually improved a hell of a lot over the years. Let's have a look at it. Okay, the only reason I've placed Charlton Woo this low is he's a little bit inconsistent. The main positives is his voice has a dream tone. It's really smoking, it's kind of lower sitting. I don't think it's quite a baritone voice because he has like higher extensions of a tenor vocal, but his voice has a really nice depth to it. It's really pleasant. He does a few different things with his voice, at least a kind of inconsistent technique, I'd say. A lot of the time, he lightens his tone to the point where it's really breathy and really soft. Like he goes, or whatever, which, yes, can lighten your tone and get you into nice areas if you've got a lower sitting voice like he kind of does. Unfortunately, he kind of puts this placement, this technique, all the way through kind of lower and middle parts of his voice, which means that he doesn't really have a lot of feeling of chord closure a lot of the time. So when he goes up into his mix, which he does kind of have, sometimes it lands pretty well and has a nice kind of full sound to it because he kind of uses that lighter tone and adds more weight to it and it lands. A lot of the time though, it kind of switches from this kind of breathy place to a and kind of more of a throaty place. He still gets to it and it still works, and when he goes into his upper areas, his voice still kind of grabs and sounds okay, but you can tell he's kind of pulling for it and reaching for notes rather than getting them dead on with a balanced mixed place. And that's purely because, as I say, he doesn't really have a feeling of his chords closure, the feeling of his chords together very often with much chord closure. And that kind of airy, breathy style he tries to carry up just won't carry up that far. You've got to lighten it while adding connection to get into that kind of higher mixed place. Sometimes though, he does kind of stay low with a bit more chord closure. I've heard that a few times. His voice sounds beautiful when he does this. It's really resonant, it's really thick, it's really full. He doesn't really have the ability as such to kind of carry that feeling up too far, and then kind of in a big mixed place, he doesn't lighten it very well. So yeah, basically he either stays really light and really airy, which is a nice pleasant tone, just you can't carry that up too far, and then kind of when he switches to a more belt style, he doesn't use the lightness of his voice that he clearly has access to and blend it into a really smooth mix. He kind of just kind of pulls for it and goes for more of a chesty configuration. So I think his voice has a lot of potential. It's got decent falsetto ability, it has the ability to lighten clearly, he just doesn't really seem too comfortable projecting it too much, and then when he does, it has a slight throaty pull. Nowhere near as much as Gingin, because obviously Charlton Woo doesn't really joke around. But his voice doesn't really have that beautiful balanced mixed place that pretty much everybody else coming up does have, but his voice is still decent, sits in a slightly lower area and has nice tone and nice dynamics. He just kind of doesn't use the lighter style he implements in his lower range very efficiently in his higher range, but he still has access to a belt, which works occasionally. Okay, so from here on out it gets kind of contentious. I wouldn't kind of be surprised where people place 2, 3 and 4. For me, Sanha's voice of all three has the least kind of access, I guess, but his voice is still very good and very easy. Let's see what I mean.
널 데려다 줄게 이거구나. 너가 있어야 할 거. 못 해줄게 미안해. 널 잡았어야 해. 널 책임지고 싶고 이해할게 잘 견뎌왔는데.
Okay, so Sanha's voice, as I say, his whole range sounds very comfortable and very easy. He kind of doesn't really have a very thick or full voice. When he sings, it's kind of quiet, but he's not always using a lot of breath. He generally stays pretty full. He just kind of has a lighter voice. It doesn't really have a lot of oomph to it, which is kind of interesting because he has one of the better belts in the group, really, in terms of when he pulls a bit more weight up. So yeah, all the way through his range, the tuning is very nice, it sounds very easy, it sounds very comfortable, he's in a very light configuration a lot of the time, but he's staying connected, he's not going super breathy. He does sometimes, like he has access to the da-da-da style as well as Chat and Woo, just doesn't really utilise it as often. I feel like Sanha's voice is more connected and kind of more seamless all the way through his lower to middle range, I would say. He doesn't really have any jarring placement changes as he goes up like Chat and Woo kind of does. Sanha still kind of pulls a little bit of chest. Like he doesn't balance out into the best mix I've ever heard in my life. He doesn't really place the voice in his head and then kind of bring weight up and then unleash belts in that way. He kind of just brings weight up, but he doesn't bring up like a ton of weight because his voice doesn't have a lot of weight to it. So as he brings it up into this place, it's kind of balanced. It doesn't really have a lot of power potential or really much in the way of kind of an upper extension or much in the way of a super robust mix, but he gets into these kind of higher areas. A lot of the time when MJ is doing his high notes, Sanha covers his parts and kind of covers those little lines that MJ has to do normally, because his voice kind of sounds really comfortable at this pitch doing these kind of areas, because his voice, as I say, it's seamless. It doesn't really have too much to it. There isn't too much weight to bring up. It's just kind of easy all the way through his range with no huge obvious placement issues. It's kind of a voice that's light, but also has the ability to bring up a bit of weight into kind of a more belty place. And when he does belt, it sounds comfortable, sounds balanced enough. It just doesn't really sound like it's got much to go into because he doesn't really utilise a lot of head placement. He just has a really comfortable spoken voice and kind of a comfortable chest voice, which he brings up into kind of a chesty mixed area. And that's kind of the way Sanha's voice works. It's easy, it's consistent, it's nice, it's pleasant. I really like the tone. He just doesn't utilise much in the way of a lot of grab because there isn't much to really grab onto. It's just kind of a softer, lighter tone, which gets into higher areas nice and freely, nice and easily. Just lacks the upper extension and the kind of robust mix of kind of everyone coming up. But to me, Sanha's kind of that bridge gap. He has a very, very good voice, very consistent voice, and I think his vocals in years to come, if he kind of learns to put it more in his head and kind of open the space a bit more, will have a really beautiful mix in time. Just right now, it's comfortable, it's easy. The range isn't enormous, and there isn't kind of much to go above the main kind of chesty belt he goes for, but his voice is good, consistent, reliable, and I like it a lot. Okay, I was incredibly tempted to put Rocky higher. This guy for a lead rapper has an exceptional singing voice with a tiny technical inconsistency which kind of stops him being in the top two, but his lead vocalist material for sure. Let's watch him sing.
볼때 보이지 않나의 안타까운 맘에 쳐다만 보고 싶어. 그래서 달려가고 있어. 살짝 부담스러운 yeah, oh why 아무리 비워내도 내 안에는 너만 살아 내가 afraid to say that 뒤끝 장난 아니야 너무해 넌 항상 말에 남지 않으니까 뒤로 좀 물러서 네 눈에 내가 있어 이른 아침처럼 잠기 안 돼 눈이 번쩍.
Okay, so the reason I put Rocky at third and not second, like I was very tempted to do, is he does some things as well, if not better than number one, and some things not as well as number 4 and 5. So basically the place his voice works really well in is this kind of upper belt. He has probably the most balanced, developed, head voice dominant 50-50 balanced mixes in the group outside of number one. What I mean by that, I'll give this a go. Like in the Bruno Mars cover, When I Was Your Man, he's the one who kind of goes, first say I was wrong. He's the only one outside of number one who can kind of get into that pitch, that connected, that full, and make it sound that easy and that sustainable. Rocky has an amazing upper balanced mix. It's insane, really. I was researching it and thinking, oh my god, how does a rapper have this mix and not have a vocalist tag? I kind of understood why a little tiny bit. In his kind of mid to low range, he stays kind of full and kind of connected and very spoken. Because he stays so full and so connected, however, he has a little bit of a tendency to put the voice in his throat slightly. So when he kind of goes above that into this mix and puts it into his head, the placement issue is alleviated. He sounds amazing in this upper range, and he's probably got the best one here. But as he brings it further down slightly, because he's got so much weight to bring up into this heady place, his kind of throat takes a tiny bit of a beating, and his tuning in the middle and lower end of his voices isn't as kind of perfect as 1 and 2 for me personally. So while he's got an insane power potential, insane mix, and a fantastic placement up in this higher area, kind of the middle and lower end of his voices, while tuned pretty well, do drop off now and again because you can hear it slightly in his throat, and that might be slightly stylistic, but it means that he's kind of technically bring it into more of a kind of difficult place to sing in. And then when he's kind of lower on and he kind of tries to go into low notes, he drops his larynx a little bit and the tuning falls off a little bit again. So Rocky's voice is essentially great in its upper mix. It has an insane mix potential and it's really balanced, and he's bringing up good weight. It doesn't sound like he's struggling in that area at all. He just doesn't quite have the most balanced middle voice compared to the other two guys because he doesn't lighten it and use it in a most seamless possible way. But that's really nitpicking. I could very much have an argument for Rocky at number 2. There's also an argument, I guess, for Rocky at number 4. But for me, 3 is the perfect place. He's got more of an impressive kind of upper mix and more power potential than the guys I've mentioned so far, and he's not quite as balanced all the way through as the guys I'm going to mention. So to me, 3 is the perfect place for him, and his voice is insane, and with a little bit more practice kind of in the middle areas of his voice and kind of tuning refinement, he will be amazing. So yeah, for me, 3 is kind of the best place for him, but he's a very impressive vocalist. Okay, so to me, Moonbin's voice isn't as impressive in this upper area like Rocky's is, but all the way through it's a little bit more balanced. Let's see what I mean.
You're my world, 영원히 forever. 감상하고 내가 그대 고백만 줄 거야. 탑이 나는 손을 내 온몸에 전을 alright. 끝까지 차올라서 잠시 멈췄었지만 이 순간에 go back to 드디어 나의 발걸음에 입술에 맺힌 내 이름이 그제야 새가 잦은 듯
Okay, so as I say, Moonbin's voice all the way through his range to me is a little bit more seamless and technically proficient than Rocky's is. Yes, I think Rocky's got a much better balanced mix up in this higher area, but all the way through Moonbin does some really, really great things with his voice. Okay, so the obvious thing is when he speaks, he's very softly spoken, and his voice is a lot higher than I expected it to be. And because of that, he's obviously got a natural affinity in these higher keys, which is really useful in this kind of sort of group where all the music is really poppy in this really high key. Moonbin has a slight nasal placement. A few of the other guys have as well, but it's not kind of as prominent. So when he's kind of in his middle to lower end of his voice, while lower end's not like amazing because he's got a higher voice, the middle of his voice is really kind of the same and seamless all the way through. Because it's slightly nasal, it's kind of all light all the way through his range. It's not super breathy, it stays nice and connected and nice and full, and the nasal placement kind of gives it this naturally lightened out sort of tone, and he doesn't use it to kind of get stuck like some people do. Like you can kind of go, I'm singing like that, and it's kind of in the nose, it kind of sounds a bit weird. Moonbin brings it a bit more forward than that. It's kind of more a forward nasal placement, so kind of all the way through the 4th octave, his voice sounds really easy, sounds really full, really connected, and really nice, and he doesn't put anything into his throat like Rocky does. For me, Rocky's kind of already kind of half belting at this area. Moonbin's still nice and comfortable, and that might be kind of because of a biological advantage of his higher voice, but it's also because he places it a little bit more efficiently, kind of more forward in his nose, which allows for that middle of his voice to be more seamless all the way through than Rocky's is. Again, I'm nitpicking there. If you place them the other way around, I get it, that's fine. Moonbin, again, also has access to a really nice mixed voice. It's not as powerful and as forward and as kind of balanced as Rocky's is, but he still has access to this upper area, because above the kind of nasal placement, when he brings up a bit of weight into a more chesty configuration, he also has the ability to place it slightly more in his head, kind of pull a little bit more and into these kind of like sort of areas. It's not kind of as forward and as open as Rocky's is, as I say, but Moonbin's voice still has access to this upper mix, which he uses slightly more staccato. He probably wouldn't like do big long belt passages like Rocky and Number One would, but his voice still has this access. Just to me, he's got a kind of more seamless blended voice all the way through than Rocky's does, and that's kind of why I've placed him higher. Moonbin's voice is really consistent, really nice, really full and connected without any sort of horrible kind of throatiness or any sort of placement issues. And the nasality that he uses helps lighten the tone all the way through and make the whole thing a really cohesive instrument. So to me, I don't think Moonbin really struggles in any area of his voice, bar really low, because his voice is kind of higher sitting. And the only person who can go really low anyway is Gingin. So that doesn't really matter too much in terms of this ranking. But to me, Moonbin, really consistent, really cohesive voice, has a bit more power potential than Sanha, and kind of uses nasality in a better mixed way than Sanha does, and kind of has a more seamless blended instrument than Rocky does. So to me, that's why I've put him number 2, but I would understand a few jigs around here and there depending on your personal take. But for me, Moonbin has the second most consistent, reliable voice in the group. Just number 1's kind of good. So, yeah. Okay, number 1, MJ. He's a little bit of a beast, isn't he? Where's he been hiding? He's got a really, really great voice. Enough people don't know about him, which is kind of sad. So let's kind of get the word out there, guys. Let's share this video and make sure people see MJ. But yeah, let's talk about his voice. 마치 죄인인 것처럼 난 안 가서. Okay, so with MJ, take all the good points I said about Moonbin and all the good points I said about Rocky and just smash them together. MJ's voice kind of, again, has a slightly nasal placement that isn't quite as obvious as Moonbin's, but it's definitely there, which means his lower end of his voice and the middle parts of his voice as, again, a smooth and seamless and already naturally quite light and in a really balanced, easy place. Again, it's not and kind of getting stuck anywhere. It's just kind of like ha, and just kind of lightens things and makes everything nice and easy and consistent and makes everything very easy to tune if you kind of have that feeling all the time. Also, when he kind of sings in Astro songs, not so much, but when he's kind of singing like original songs, like in the original soundtrack I saw him do, his low range is actually quite good when he's singing that sort of key. Like, he gets down to a nice balanced low area. Again, he's got a tenor voice, so his low end of his voice isn't like insane or isn't amazing, but it's decent. It's a lot better than it would come across in Astro's music if that's all you've really heard. But yeah, the middle of his voice, really seamless, on par with Moonbin, if not a little bit stronger. But the thing that puts him first for me, the thing that Moonbin can't do, is he also has the rocky mix, the kind of area of his voice. He's the only one, alongside Rocky, who can get into these big areas and sustain really powerful notes. He uses that nasality, places the sound forward, kind of brings weight up and unleashes the note basically that I just did there, but he can hold it for ages. Below that, when he kind of brings a little bit more weight up rather than the heady placement, his voice still sounds full, it sounds easy, it sounds connected. He's got a really good power tenor vocal in that area when he's kind of utilising the more nasal forward placement and bring up a good amount of weight. And again, above that, he's got a pretty nice balanced mix in the headier style. Above that, he's also got a really beautiful head voice. Rocky does as well, I forgot to mention that. His is pretty decent, but MJ's is more consistent. He's kind of got the kind of mass player's head voice sort of area of his voice as well. So yeah, MJ's voice kind of all the way through has the most practiced and kind of the best sound in each kind of register. Low, he's good. Medium, or like the middle of his voice, is great, alongside Moonbin's kind of more nasal, easy light placement all the way through. And his upper belt, him and Rocky are kind of similar, but MJ to me is slightly more consistent and kind of does it more. And then above that, he's got a really great head voice use and mass player's head voice. So yeah, MJ is like really great, and I hope that a lot of people know about him, and if they don't, look him up because he's awesome. As with the whole of Astro, I think they're a really great group. I really enjoy talking about them. And yeah, to me, MJ just kind of encompasses everything that works really well with everybody's voice. Smooth and blended, nice and easy, has really good power potential, really good mix potential. It's nice and free, nice and agile, nice and consistent. So yeah, MJ's voice is unbelievable. Please go and see it if you haven't already, because you will be very, very surprised and very happy that you found it, because he's a really, really good singer. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Astro are really fun to get to know, and I'm happy I finally got to talk about them, because their voices are actually kind of slept on a little bit, which is kind of sad. Next up in kind of the way I want to do things is a big four group, and on my Patreon, the name I saw more than any other was Wavy. They're up next, guys. I hope you're looking forward to that. I know a lot of you guys want that episode. Without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.